Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Common Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, and the time is 7 p.m. We'll begin by having Joanne Marcon, our city clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Sean McAllister,
Here.
Dan Stevens,
Present.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Mike Milkey,
Here.
Larry Jurassic,
Present.
Diane Wolf here.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Thank you. Item 3, the rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. The City Council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the sergeant at arms or the chair at any time during the remarks. And in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item number 4 is public input. This is the time where members of the public may address the Common Council. If you choose to do so, please come forward, begin by stating your name and your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to address the Common Council this evening? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is James Benash, B as in Bravo, INASH, 700 Westwood Drive here in Onalaska. I'm here on behalf of the Onalaska American Legion. The Veterans Group is interested in expanding the ceremonial area in the cemetery. Several weeks ago, we met with the Administration and Judiciary Committee to express our interest, and we're hopeful that the City Council and the city will work with the Veterans Group to expand the ceremonial area. Right now, when we do our ceremonies there really isn't enough room. And the way that the cemetery, fortunately, is filling up, this is the right time to go ahead and do something like this. So we look forward to working with the city and hopefully expanding the area where we can keep our ceremonial area there. Otherwise, it would be a bit of a monumental task for us to move it elsewhere. And also, I'd like to point out that I'm interested in the city council position for First District. So I put my intention in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to address the Common Council this evening? Second call for anyone wishing to address the Common Council. Third and final call for anyone wishing to address the Common Council this evening. Public input is now closed, and we will move on to item 5, report from the mayor. Under item A, there is a presentation regarding the trap neuter return program, and I'll ask Kathy to come forward to the podium and give your presentation. Come on forward. Oh, okay, well, you can introduce yourself when you get up here. So just come up to the podium, make sure that it's on and speak into it. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and give your presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us. I'm Margie Webster, and I'm involved with TNR, which is Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Return, through Coulee Region Meow Mission. We're a small TNR group based in this area. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about community cats, and then you'll probably have a lot of questions that we'll want to answer, so I'll spend most time doing that. So community cats are found pretty much everywhere people live. These outdoor free roaming cats are cared for by community members, and that's why we like to call them community cats. They vary in their sociability or their willingness to be around humans. Some can be very friendly, and they're probably indoor, outdoor pets. Some would be called stray, which are potentially friendly. They might be lost pets or abandoned pets. We have semi-feral who don't mind humans, but don't really seek out contact. And then there's one that you would consider more feral, which would be kind of avoidant of humans in general. So they have learned to live on their own. Usually one or more caring individual in a given neighborhood will be supporting them. If this is left untouched, the number of cats will rise exponentially, as these guys will be able to share. For decades, trapping and removing these cats has been the policy. They're taken to a shelter. There's some potential for adoption, some working cat potential, some sanctuary, but there's just too many cats and not enough locations for these. So we need to have a community cat program that will utilizing trap, neuter, vaccinate, return to kind of control the number of outdoor cats. Work also needs to be done on owned pets and getting affordable spay neuter, but that's a big discussion for another day that these guys are working on also. So basically, as I said, I'm part of Cooley Region Meow Mission. We do the TNR, so we identify areas where there's large number of free roaming cats and the people who take care of them. We secure a vet appointment, we trap the cats, we transport them, they're spayed or neutered, they're vaccinated for rabies, distemper, and then the tip of their left ear is cut off while they're under anesthesia. So they're easily identified in the community that they have already been treated. Title VII, Chapter 4 is the ordinances, and as you all probably know, in the city of Onalaska regarding companion animals. And there is no desire to change any of the obligations of owners of owned pets. These are for the free roaming cats that would be identified by the ear tipping. So again, we don't want to change anything for owned pets. We don't want people abandoning them. We don't want owned pets running at large. They all need to be vaccinated, et cetera. It's hard to estimate how many cats that are actually out there, but there are just too many in general. We want to have fewer free roaming cats. We want to decrease the concerns that your constituents or the public has, animal control officers, the shelter, the people who care for these cats, governmental agencies, and there's really not a way to do it by trapping and removing. So TNR has been shown to be an effective method for humanely and sustainably controlling the numbers of free roaming cats. So I know if you have anything you want to say or if you guys have questions.
Okay, thank you for that information. Does anyone have any questions? Larry?
Yeah, can you give us a number of what you guys do in a month?
I'm sorry.
How many you do in a month?
Oh, you mean our program?
Yeah.
We've been doing this work since 2018. We became a 501c3 in 2020. And since then, we've done 575 cats, which includes removing kittens to go into indoor homes. So we don't, a community cat program isn't just TNR. There's complaint mitigation and then removing kittens or social cats that would be amenable to living indoors. So per month, it really varies. Like in the winter, we don't do it as much because of the temperature. A given surgery day, last one we had 17 on a surgery day. The highest we've ever had is 32 in a day. We have a wonderful vet does the high quality, low cost, high volume spay neuter.
Okay,
I guess I'm Heather Dryvold with the Cooley Region Humane Society. I just want to say that we're not talking, the shelter definitely supports this program. We would currently what happens when feral cats come in from any municipality that doesn't allow TNR, they're held for a stray hold and then they are promptly euthanized after that stray hold is over because they're not a candidate, as Margie said, for indoor placements. But we're also not talking about enormous numbers for the city of Onalaska. So far this year, we have taken in 133 cats from the city of Onalaska, and only 4 of them have been euthanized for being feral. So we're not looking to just create a dumping ground somewhere for these cats. We're really looking to be strategic about what happens and making sure that we're being very cautious as to where we're putting the animals back and making sure that they have a caregiver that is supporting their needs.
how would you identify a location where you would release a cat back into the community? Like, would it be a self-identified caregiver?
It would be from the same, around the same location that the animal came from. And typically, once you identify where that cat has come from, somebody is feeding these cats that are outdoors. There's a lot of people in the city of Onalaska who are feeding cats right now that are not spayed and neutered, but they don't want to call us. They don't want us to come in because they know the ultimate result of that is euthanasia. And that's why the kittens are coming, because once they're born, they will bring them to us, and then we can place them for adoption, but they don't want to have the euthanization of the animals that they've been caring for.
Thank you. Thank you for helping educate us on this topic. Definitely lots to learn. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I know I have a commissioner in district who contacted me last year and I've been speaking with legal a little bit about it. And I know she was hopeful that maybe the city might be looking at adjusting our ordinances, or we would at least consider it prior to maybe this next summer. And I think her number one concern was it's more how the city of Onalaska chooses how we write our ordinance, and whether it's how we identify how many someone may foster, but I think it's more the identification or more the defining. Can more than one be from either a litter or a second litter? So and she's very pro TNR. So so this couldn't have been better timing for you to come. So going forward, is this something that, because I know we have a yearly contract that we've had for years with the Humane Society and the City of Onalaska. Is this something that we would be looking towards some collaboration, or like, how would we work with you? What would be the going forward? How would we work with you?
I think changing the ordinance, we're gonna still continue to do what we always do, and these cats that come to us are going to come to us anyway. They're not treated any differently than any other cat coming to us, and this would just allow us to put them back where they came from instead of euthanizing them.
Without more kittens coming.
Right.
60 days.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So one of the big issues that, I'm Kathy Cascadis, I'm with Animal Control, is in the past, when we just remove these cats, when we have an area, if we just go in and trap and remove them, that's just freeing up a space for more cats to come in. These community cats, they're called a community because they actually live together, and they don't let other cats come in into their community. So they'll chase other cats off and not allow other ones in. So the numbers, you will see the numbers slowly start to go down. Years, but it's got to start somewhere because the numbers are large. There's, as Heather said, places that don't want to call us for help because they're afraid that all these cats will be trapped and euthanized, because our placement for the working cats, which are the semi-ferals, there's only so many homes out there for them, and cats are living 15 plus years. So there's not any place for these. So euthanasia, and the numbers in Onalaska are not huge. But there are a few areas that we know of that have some cat issues that this would help reduce those numbers.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation, and we'll consider our next steps.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Can I give you, I have some information if you want.
By all means.
Okay.
Why don't you just leave it with Joanne, and we can pass it out for you?
Thank
No problem. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I think I have 7.
Okay, next up, we have some excitement here. We'll have Pete come up first. I'll just turn it over to him for recognition and the badge pinning for our full-time firefighter EMT for completing his 1 year. Scott
you go.
Gustafson.
Good evening. It's been a pleasure. This is Scott Gustafson. He's been with us for a year now. It's been a pleasure to have Scott at the OFD for the past year. Scott is one of those guys we talk a lot about coming in and giving 100% effort and a good attitude every day. Scott is a shining example of that. Everything else can be taught, and Scott just does a wonderful job. He's high effort. He's been really active and engaged in a lot of committees, which has been great, especially for a first-year member. Scott has been particularly helpful and engaged with our pub ed committee, in which he took the voluntary obligation to be Smokey Bear on a very, very hot September day during our open house. So really appreciate that. Scott's in on multiple fire EMS calls and fire calls, and always eager to help out. We're just truly happy that Scott chose Onalaska Fire Department as his fire family. So with that, I'd like to invite up Sarah, his partner, to come up and perform the badge pinning.
Stacy, come up so you get a good picture.
Puddles.
It always bothers me when people are taking odd pictures since they don't want to leave.
Hard to find a little.
Chief, stand up there with them. Come on. Get a professional photography license. Thank you, Scott. We're happy to have you. Okay, the next one we're going to put off until next month when Max can be here because I want him to be able to experience his pinning as well. So we'll move on to item D. Some of us were able to experience this in person, but our very own Officer Tyler Blair received a award from our La Crosse County District Attorney's Office. He was awarded the Top Cop Award, and I'll maybe let Chief Ashbeck just say a couple words about that if you would like to, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so this past week, we were honored by the District Attorney's Office. All of their staff voted over this past year on all the officers across La Crosse County on what officer goes above and beyond to help victims and people involved in the criminal and justice system. And so they nominated Officer Blair and he was selected. And so he was presented an award by our district attorney here downstairs in our training room. And we had great attendance by several electeds. His family drove down from Superior, Wisconsin through that crazy wind snowstorm that prior day. So we were thankful they were able to safely make it. And he was very surprised. We kept a secret. And so his reaction was awesome. And we're grateful for him and all his great work on our department.
Yeah, and I will say that one of the comments that the district attorney's office made for the reason that they selected him for the award was because of the amount of compassion that he shows as an officer. And I think that's something that we all can appreciate in police officers nowadays in the trying times that we have, and we know the diverse situations that they have to deal with. That's really a great trait and very proud to have that recognized in one of our own officers, although I know all of our officers have a lot of compassion for people. So thank you. Okay, recommendations for approval under possible action from the following committees, commission, boards, and officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted under one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Are there any items the councilors would like removed from the agenda? Consent agenda, not the entire agenda. One word, it makes a lot of difference.
Words matter.
Can we move stuff from the non-consent and put it on the consent?
I don't know.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dan Stevens. It's been seconded by Diane Wolf to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we will move on to the non-consent agenda. Item 7 is a recap of the items pulled from the consent agenda. There were none. Item 8 is the Finance Committee. Alder Sean McAllister, vouchers.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers tonight in the amount of $2,331,562.86.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Sean McAllister. It's been seconded by Mike Milky to approve the vouchers. All those is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Under Personnel Committee, this item was not discussed at the Personnel Committee, has been added. I'm not sure who to direct it to. Is it you, Sean, or someone else?
Rick.
I'll direct it over to Rick. Okay, Rick, turning it over to you.
Thank you. So if you may recall, this was on the council agenda a few months back, and it was adjourned to this month to have some further discussion. Council members wanted to have an opportunity to maybe digest some of the information that was discussed and then have staff go back and have some further discussion about this. So if you will recall, the proposal is to have what's called an internal equity and pay plan review. So this is something that would be conducted by Baker Tilly that would review our positions as well as our pay scale and our wages and determine whether there are any inequities that we need to adjust in some form or fashion. There are, again, I'm going to go do a little bit of a summary from the last time. You may recall there are different, I guess, steps of different types of reviews that can be done. The highest one is essentially a full market review. That one is approximately $31,000. And then, again, there's
Can you
ones in
repeat
between.
that?
$31,000. And then this one that's being proposed is probably the lowest tier one at $16,000. So again, there was some discussion last time, and we're here back to discuss it again tonight. So after the last meeting, there were some discussions among staff regarding kind of how we move forward with this. There were some alternatives that were discussed to doing this type of a plan. There was one thought or one discussion regarding doing the review ourselves internally here at the city. And so I just wanted to go over just kind of a brief overview of what that process would look like if we wanted to do it internally. So the first step, we would have to review all of our current job descriptions for the different positions that would be reviewed. We'd have to make any appropriate changes to those job descriptions based on current job duties and responsibilities. Then we would need to reach out to what we call our comparable municipalities to obtain their job descriptions as well as their wage information. And once we get that information, we would then have to go through and compare the job descriptions to see how closely they compare. So when you look at the wages that are with each respective position, both ours as well as theirs, to make sure that they match up. So in other words, if the duties are different in some form or fashion, then we have to make an assessment as to whether or how that impacts what the wage would be for our current staff. Once all those comparisons are made and all those changes are made, put together the results and bring forward to council. So again, that's just as an overview of the process that it would take. So as you can see, it's pretty labor intensive. From a staffing standpoint here at the city, we don't have the staffing to do an internal one from my perspective. And in talking with staff, that particularly in light of the fact that we are going to be implementing a new ERP system this next year. And that process is going to be a monumental task throughout the year that is going to take a lot of extra staff time. So doing it internally in that particular process, from my perspective, isn't real viable. We just don't have the staffing to do it. Another thought that was discussed was looking at those positions that have not been either formally or informally reviewed since the compensation study was done. Again, sending it off to Baker Tilly to do that. It certainly will come at a lower cost. I forget the cost off the top of my head. I'll ask Amy in a moment if she does remember what that cost would be, but there would be a lower number of positions that would be reviewed. Certainly that is an option. My concern about that particular option is if you're doing an equity review, you're not comparing it to the other positions across the city. So if you have different positions in the same department, you're not automatically looking at what the other positions in that department are making as well. So from my perspective, it's not a great comparison, but it is something that was discussed as an option. Another option that was also discussed was not doing a study at this time, maybe looking at some other benefit enhancements. And just as purely as an example, looking at vacation time, is there something we can do in vacation time if we aren't going to do any kind of review and adjustment? Again, that was just something that was talked about. Really, when the discussions were had, there wasn't anything that was not on the table, but just some things that were talked about. Anything in regards to benefits, of course, has impact as well too on the different departments, staffing levels, those types of things. So obviously there are some pros and cons to that. At the end of the day, I'm still recommending that we proceed with the equity review. I believe that that is in the best interest of the city. At this point in time, what we're really looking for from a city's perspective is information. Going forward, we all know that we have some budgetary constraints that we're going to have to deal with in various forms. When we look at different funding options, which we're going to start doing here next week and moving forward, we kind of need to know what it is we need from a funding perspective to know what options are really viable for the city moving forward. Having this study done so it can review all of the employees across the city will be beneficial in that respect. Again, I want to be clear though, right now we're looking for information. Any conversation in regards to an implementation of any of the results, that is a separate conversation that will be had at a later date and time. We can't implement what we can't afford. So even if we do come back, the study does come back with some information that we need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that looks like, we can't implement what we can't afford, but at least that will give us some information that we can utilize when we're looking at different funding options going forward, where we're at this point in time, what can we do with the information or what can we do going forward? So again, too, at this point in time, I'm still recommending that we go that route. We also have the employees that we talked about last time. There's 10 of them who are either at or one step below at the top level of our wage scale. And I know that there was some discussion that, it's not an uncommon thing in the world to have you top out and that's where you end up. My perception or perspective of it is a little bit different in regards to those individuals who are at the top. Those are individuals who have spent a lot of dedication to the city over the years, doing a lot of work for us. And I would hate to send a message to them saying that you've topped out and unfortunately this is what, you can't go any higher other than what the COLAs are. So I do think that we really need to take a look at those. They're 10 now, but there's going to be more as time goes on, as more individuals get to that level. Again, it's one of those things for a retention purpose as well. We have union contract negotiations coming up, so we, again, for informational purposes, need to know where we're going to be at when it comes to wages across the city. Now, again, that's just wages is what we're talking about in this respect. This wage study doesn't take into account, we have to consider funding for inflation. Everything costs more as time goes on. So those are other things that we got to take a look at as well too. And I certainly don't want to sound any alarm, but I know that a number of, I've sent information on to you about the litigation involving Act 10. Now, again, there's nothing that needs to be done with that at this point in time, but that is something that's out there. We just need to be mindful of. And this wage review could be something that could be helpful depending on how that goes moving forward. And at the end of the day, if we don't do any kind of a study, then we do what we can with the COLAs. But it would be my recommendation that it's in the best interest of the city that we move forward with this wage review, internal wage review, and get the information back. Once we get that information back, then we can make a determination what, if anything, we do at that point going forward. Thank you.
Okay, discussion, questions, comments? Alder Knott? You next, Alder Stevens.
So, yeah, I guess I'm open to taking a look at it. I do have a real concern with the assumption that it should be reasonable to have an infinite level of pay positions or infinite level of pay by position just because somebody's been here longer. I know in my own career, there are 5 times where I've actually reached that, where I've reached the maximum pay level that I could get in the position I currently held. And in each occasion, my wife and I celebrated that we maximized our salary. And it's a good thing, all right? I don't think that it's reasonable in my mind that what I'm understanding is if somebody keeps staying on, that we just keep adding levels and levels and levels. The responsibility level isn't changing for that position. So that's just my 2 cents.
Alder Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, first, I guess to acknowledge Alder Knott's point, I agree. Most government positions have some sort of top tier maximum that you reach, and it just stops, and that's how that world works. So why would Onalaska's realm be any different for that matter? But my main concern is it's not the dollar amount, the 16,000 or the 31,000 that I'm really concerned with. Although I think a better option would be to find a way to just steer that towards COLA. But in this last budget cycle, I think that we probably pushed the general budget farther than what our finance director was really comfortable with. And if we do a study that involves pay equity, like never do these things come back and they say that you're paying people too much. It's always, you need to come up, and that's the economic environment that we're in. And I don't think that we have the room for that, as the city administrator had alluded to. So if we do a study that we know that we're probably going to come up with some sort of shortfalls, I agree, it's good to know what those are, but then what do we do with that? I mean, our budget's done. We're at the top limit of where I'm comfortable with that, and either people are going to be employees and say, I know I'm being underpaid in my job, and that's going to have an adverse effect on morale, or we're going to have to find a way to accommodate that. I think a better plan, if we're going to have some sort of study, be it internal or external or whoever does it, we should time this better to go into the next budget cycle. And we have the union contracts coming up. And I personally feel that they've kind of been holding the bag a little bit. And we need to do better for the police and fire departments, because the timing of that last contract was bad. Like, we did the best that we could, and then inflation happened, and it's caused a lot of pressure for us to stay competitive there. We can't be everything to everyone with the finite resources that we have, and we got to kind of pick and choose. And I kind of feel that we're just looking for trouble here. And I'm not saying that we should never do this, but I don't think it's the right time.
Thank you. Would any other counselors like to comment or have a question? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think two things. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that, because Baker Tilly did this just a few years ago, and we're back here again with Baker Tilly, and I'm kind of surprised that the maximum pay was not addressed at that time. And I haven't had a chance to like review it in the minutes or whatever, but I mean, we just did this just what, 2020, maybe 2020?
Had to have been
Done in
before.
2020 and implemented in 21.
Okay, so it was just not that long ago. So I'm surprised it wasn't addressed, and I don't remember why it wasn't or whatever, but and second is regarding the $16,000 in the account. We have a balance in that account sitting right now, correct?
That's my understanding.
That would cover it.
Yeah, so let's,
Yes, so we do, we do have some money set aside in the general fund. That was kind of left over from the study that was done in 2021.
Okay.
So there is dollars in there. They are reserved for that. They definitely weren't budgeted for 2024. So we'd be using up some reserves essentially.
so how much is reserved for that
I
approximately?
can't get into our ERP system. We've had issues all day, but I believe there's 27,000 in there, and we would use about 16,000 of it.
And it's not assigned to anything else at this point?
It's just assigned to like internal studies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are you done with your thought, Diane?
Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, hold off because we need to give everyone their first chance to speak before we start on the second chances. So, Mike Milky?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Do you know about like approximately how often something like this is done in other municipalities? Is this something that's done every 4 years, every 10 years? Do we have any numbers or any stats on something like that?
I'm going to let Amy Franzen, she does more training on that aspect, so she'll have a better answer for you on that.
So looking at like a full-blown compensation study, I mean, that might be typical every like 5 to 7 years, for example, again, under normal circumstances. Again, we're not asking in this proposal for the full compensation study. This is just that internal review. If you recall, of our nearly 70 non-rep positions, I mean, over 40 of them have been reclassed or adjusted in some form or fashion or reviewed at some, but not all of them. And so that's why we're looking to look internally at our job descriptions and to make sure that all of them are where they should be. So again, this is just sort of that internal look, making sure that we have equity across the board.
Thank you.
And Amy, as a little follow-up to that, so it'd be the non-union permanent positions. How many positions is it?
Correct. I believe we have like 68, 70, right around there. And there's been just over 40 of them have already been, reclassed or adjusted or reviewed, since the
Since
last
then.
compensation study.
Thank you. Okay, Sean, did you want to say anything? And Larry, did you want to say anything? Okay. So now we can start the second round of speaking.
Just real briefly, I guess I have a different point of view on whether or not this was the upper scale was addressed by Baker Tilly. I believe it was, because they'd recommended a pay scale, and each one of those had levels in it, and each one of those tapped out. That was part of their recommendation that we approved. Certainly, they didn't propose that it had a never-ending level addition based on longevity. There was a limit. So.
Okay. And I had one more question for Rick. When you said your recommendation is to move forward with the Baker Tilly with the full market review for the internal equity, so the $31,000 option?
Nope, my recommendation would be the $16,000 option.
16,000 from Baker Tilly. And that was based on discussions among staff. So this went through like huddle and the department heads supported it.
It did.
Okay. All right. Any other? Yep.
I just wanted to respond to Alder Knott as well too. You are correct. There is a maximum set. However, as Amy indicated too, you do one of these every 5 to 7 years. So then they adjust what that top level is. So in theory, there's always going to be an adjustment up for the top level. So in theory, no one will ever actually cap out and not continue to receive step increases. So that is kind of why the recommendation is every 5 to 7 years. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but my understanding would be is that way, by the time you do the 5 to 7 years, you would be catching those individuals who are at the top. And so when you do a review, it's adjusted, taking them into consideration as well.
So it's not, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's not looking at adding additional levels based on longevity now. It's taking a look at what is the average pay by responsibility, by longevity across similar type cities, which is what Baker Tilly did before.
Correct.
Because what I'm perceiving this is the way it's written is, well, if somebody reaches that maximum level, we have to take a look at adding another level.
No,
That's
it
what I'm
isn't.
opposed to.
It's because the lower one, people catch up to you.
So,
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that point as well. So.
Okay. Is everyone good? Stevens?
Perhaps I'd feel better if I knew what the plan was. So in the scenario where we did the study and we found that there was a pay deficiency of, call it like, I don't know, $350,000. What do we do then? At some point, we're gonna have to address this in the next budget. Like, do we just recognize that we're underpaying certain staff? Are we going to make adjustments in staff? I need to know what that next step is before I'd be comfortable to commit to this.
Sure. One of the things that we're starting to do, as I indicated before, was we're getting people together to start talking about what are some alternative funding options for the city going forward. Because what the legislature is providing us now is not sustainable. And so when we look at what are some, whether it's fees, whether it's a referendum, whatever that looks like, if we have these dollar amounts, so we know, and I'm just making up numbers here, between all the wages across the city, we need $1.2 million. And again, I'm just making that up. So then when we're looking at these alternative funding options and we see one that maybe will give us an extra $300,000, again, making up numbers, we know that that isn't going to get us everywhere we need to go. So we need to look at other or alternative in addition to or instead of type of funding options as we talk through those different options. Again, whether it be fees, whether it be referendums, those are the things we want to look at. So that's why when I say this is for informational purposes, that will help us then as we go through those conversations, look at what do we need moving forward. So that from my perspective is what we would be looking at and then seeing what we can do to fund it, knowing that we have limited resources.
And if we can't fund it, then we just kind of did the study and that's that, or is?
Well, you know, and from my perspective, it's not an all or nothing prospect. If they come back and say that there's, again, making up numbers, we need $300,000 to make everybody good, you know, we may not be able to do all that in 1 year. So then do we look at phasing that in over a number of years in ways that we can afford to do it? So again, that'll be a further discussion for council to have, is what does that look like? But then that's when we look at those kinds of options.
I just guess for the record, I'm not afraid of doing the study. I'm afraid of the after effects of what we're going to have to deal with as a result of the study, but.
Sabrina?
Thank you. I guess my question is, and sorry, I get to talk to Rick or Amy about this. Would we reevaluate positions again after we've implemented the new ERP system as positions have changed? Likely?
And that is a fair question. Actually, I think you and I did have a brief conversation about that as well. And I appreciate you reminding me of that too. Sabrina and I did have a conversation that when the new ERP system goes into effect, you know, it's possible that there may be some job descriptions that change based on the new processes that we have. You know, to what extent or how drastic, you know, that we don't know at this point in time. You know, we're just getting started on that process now. So, so that is a factor as well.
So that was not covered in the discussion with the staff.
So that was a conversation Sabrina and I had.
Okay. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think it's a couple different things. So I certainly understand what everyone is talking about and the concerns, because I've been through a couple studies and they don't ever seem to end well for everyone, but I certainly understand the necessity for having them. So either we stick our head in the sand and we do nothing and we don't know what our challenges are, or we at least take a small step and gather information. So then we can say, okay, this is where we are for 2025. And then maybe if we aren't able to, for example, financially afford it, say, obviously we can't for 2025, but going forward, for example, I know administration, I know when Amanda was interim city administrator, she went ahead and came to me as council president, the mayor, and talked about maybe a free pool pass for staff, which we did that first year, and then it was repeated again this past year. You know, it's those little things that we can also do for our staff that maybe we aren't able to do financially in a paycheck, but we can do in other fashions. So, and I know that was a very positive step that was done, because I know there's a lot of feedback about that. And so I think that's either I don't, and I'll be honest, I've read this so many times, I don't remember whether it's in here, I've in talk with our city administrator. I think we need to start looking and being creative and thinking outside the box if we aren't able to outright afford something as far as a paycheck. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay. Someone want to make a motion, or?
I move that we authorize the $16,000 for the internal equity plus pay plans per hour per item 9A for Baker Tilly, and the money will come out of account 100-51510-290.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. It's been seconded by Alder McAllister to approve the internal equity study. Any further discussion?
Is that the wrong account?
Sabrina Steger.
Uh-oh.
No, it's the right account.
Okay.
But would it be all right if we come back with a resolution to make a budget adjustment for 2025? Because my guess is this will not get done in 2024. So I could bring that forward in January to F&B.
Whatever
Yeah.
makes your life easier.
Perfect.
Okay, so do we need to adjust the motion, or can we?
Or do we even need the motion or we just authorize a resolution, or just more of a consensus?
I think you would go ahead with a motion, and then perhaps a friendly amendment could be, and direct staff to come back with a resolution in January.
Okay.
Okay.
Was there a second?
Yeah, it was Sean.
So I will amend my original motion for staff to come back with a resolution in January.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment?
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, so we'll vote first on the amendment, which is to come back with the resolution in January. Voting on the amendment, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amendment, say no. The amendment passes. Now voting on the original motion as amended to move forward with the study and to have that resolution in January. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
We have just referred that to January. Would that have made more sense?
Well, this way they can get the resolution ready, I guess. Okay. Number 10, Administrative Committee, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 10, under Administrative Committee, approval of 2025 fee schedule. There was only two little items for A and J, and it was canceled last week. So this item came directly to council. I move that we approve. Sorry, I have a mess over here. I move that we approve the 2025 fee schedule, and I reserve my time for questions.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. It's been seconded by Alder Not to approve the fee schedule. Under discussion, Alder Wolf.
My apologies, I meant to say for the next item, so I am good. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
Oh.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 11, Judiciary. I'll turn it over to you, Alder Not.
This is Resolution 35-2024 to approve the 2025 special event fee schedule for extraordinary services, and they are listed in your packet. And I will move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Not. It's been seconded by Alder Milky to approve Resolution 35-2024. On any discussion, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now is my question. So on page 15, Exhibit A, can I assume, and whoever wants to address this, can I assume that page 15, any adjustments to this page was due to updated salaries for 2025? And on page 16, there wasn't any changes whatsoever.
Sabrina Steger.
Thank you. This is prepared by my office, and that is correct. So Exhibit A was updated based on 2025 wages, also based on WRS changes. The percentage did increase slightly, and then also we include health insurance when we're calculating these rates. So that is the only change. There was no change on the page after that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The resolution passes unanimously. Item 12, Board of Public Works, Alder Not.
Yes, last week, the Board of Public Works unanimously recommended approval of the $7,944,936 capital improvements budget you see in your packet. I will move to approve.
A second.
Okay, motion on the floor by Alder Not. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic. Is there any discussion? Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I have some questions, but I would like to first thank our Public Works Director, Jared Holter, our Fire Chief, Pete Fletty, and our Police Chief, Chuck Ashbeck, for your time and consideration of the questions that you answered of me. Chief Fletty was kind enough to go ahead and also give me a tour of the fire station and he also provided me kind of like your inventory of the vehicles you have, just current, and then also talking about going forward. That was very helpful and very good conversations, very good frank discussions. And so thank you all for that. So I have questions about, I believe, 6 items, either questions or comments. And I believe they all know what my questions are going to be, and I expressed that I would be talking about them tonight. So I try to operate on no surprises, because that's always best. So if I may, the only thing I wanted to talk about was so I'll start with number 16, the cemetery improvement. I certainly understand. First of all, I want to also thank the Board of Public Works and the committee members and all the support staff that you had going into this, because obviously you had, as always, you had a very large task in front of you, to go ahead and you start with so many items, which are obviously they're on the list for a reason, and then to go ahead and start cutting. So I just wanted to say that I certainly understand why the cemetery improvement, why it just was reduced to phase 1 instead of going 2 phases. I was very hopeful in the beginning that would go 2 phases because I thought it would make much more impact with community, but I certainly understand you just staying with the 1 phase. So I'm good with that. I would like to talk more about item 32, the Esther Drive retaining wall extension. I attended either remotely or in person the September, October, November, and December Board of Public Works. I've read all the minutes. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember anyone there was public input, I think at least 2 times about this, but I don't remember it ever being actually discussed or any questions being asked. So I know the story about it. And I guess my question is, does the city have any liability to this? And why are we spending $20,000 why do we feel the need to spend $20,000 when, especially when this is a new item and there's other items on the agenda or on this several pages that have been waiting since 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And this one pops up the first year and I know it's just $20,000, but the library didn't get anything this year. So I guess I'd like to understand, why are we spending $20,000 for this? And I think it'd just be good to also get in the minutes because it's never been discussed. Well, did I miss that?
It was discussed in Board of Public Works on the very first review we had of the 3 on the Public Works budget. It was discussed and should be in the minutes.
Yeah,
But
it wasn't in the minutes.
I mean, I guess, are we rediscussing it now, or are you just speaking? I'm not sure.
Well,
what we're doing.
I just want, I guess
I
want
thought
to
you were just
understand.
giving your input and we were listening.
Well, I have input and I'm asking questions because I just want some additional follow-up and yeah, I just want some additional follow-up.
Jared?
Thank you. So that item did come through from a citizen. I will say that citizen was the only person, other than the public comment we got at the capital improvements hearing. We had 1 comment submitted. That was the only person that came in during public input to request a project of all the projects that were in the list. The other thing with that retaining wall is that retaining wall was installed by the city, reinstalled. It was actually installed twice over the last 20 years. That retaining wall, it does get steep on the one end. Is there a liability to the city? I guess I'd put that back to the attorney, but can it be better? It can be better. So that's what the citizens are requesting, is a better yard, better length of the retaining wall. So with that, that's the reason it was put into the capital improvements budget and requested. We're actually hopefully we can get it done for less than that, but that's our budget number that we have for the project, so.
I'm not familiar with the retaining wall, and so unfortunately I cannot speak to the liability of it. Generally speaking, if it's part of the park, we would have recreational immunity. But I guess I would have to actually see the retaining wall and understand what it does to answer that question, which I'm not prepared to do tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't find any comments in the minutes or, yeah, but you may have talked about, there was nothing in the minutes. Okay. So item 37, the pumper tender fire truck. So, so I'm assuming that if we pass the capital improvements tonight, and I see that the financing plan is to be determined for the $1.425 million. We're making a commitment to purchase this. And I certainly, I understand all the reasoning, and chief and his staff, they need to go ahead, you need to go ahead and spec it out and all that. I guess, and just for the minutes, for this council, I think it would be really good. And I've asked, and I sent our finance director an email earlier today. So she could maybe just kind of review because only 2 council members are on Board of Public Works. And I think it'd be good for everyone to hear the same message in the room tonight. As far as the possible proposed financing plan for this.
Okay, Sabrina, do you want to do it?
Sure, I most definitely can. We did discuss this at Board of Public Works. The committee did vote on this. My recommendation would be to allow the chief to order the truck, knowing that we will have to borrow for some of the truck. I feel confident that we'll end the year with a surplus. I would bring forward a recommendation of a dollar amount to set aside for the purchase of the truck, likely in February, that we would set reserves aside. Then we would have to see where we are in 2025 when we are doing our bonding for 2025. And maybe we would, earmark a certain dollar figure to bond for 2025 and then finish it out in 2026. That would be my recommendation. And maybe 2025, we'd end up in a similar position where we'd be able to set maybe $100,000 aside at the end of 2025 and then borrow less in the subsequent year. But there is at least a 3-year timeline before we would have the truck in hand and have to pay for the full price.
And thank you for that. So, and my only concern, and first of all, I want to thank everyone for at least thinking out of the box and trying to make something happen, because I mean, it was obviously a very large ticket item. And I think too, the only caution that I have that I have concerns about going, in the future is when we receive our capital improvement budget every year, there's typically a 5-year timeline that the majority of departments put forth. And there are a lot of large ticket items that are coming through from a lot of departments. And I know, and the chief knew I was going to pick on him tonight, but I'm not really, I'm just bringing it up. So he's cool. In 2 years, he has an engine that's coming in for another $1.5 million plus. And so my concern is, how we're going to do that. And so, and I know that this council's also relied on recently. We've been very fortunate to have a surplus the last few years, and that we've been able to put those dollars and roll it over into equipment replacement, which has really helped us when it comes time to fund capital improvement items. So then we can go ahead and buy police cars out of that and such. So it's until we figure out the whole thing with the 5-year short-term borrowing with the state. So I'm just urging caution. We just need to be aware that there's a lot of other big things coming, and I certainly am supportive of that, but I just think we just need to keep remembering there's a lot of big items coming.
Okay, Sabrina?
Thank you. Just to clarify there, the state did change the rules around, and we don't have to short-term borrow anymore. So you'll see that coming forward when we do our financing plan. We will finance for the whole dollar figure with a bond or a note. And then we can have smaller, we can pay off, for example, the police vehicles over 5 years. So we can set up the financing that way, but we no longer have to short-term borrow at the higher interest rates. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, perfect. And I think Alder Knott has or unless you're not finished, do you maybe let Alder Wolf finish and then
I just have 3, I'm
okay,
half done.
yeah, just finish and then we'll go to the next Alder.
And so item 45, the splash pad location to be determined. Just wanted to ask Parks and Rec Director Dan Wick, can I assume that once that determination, or I'm assuming that you'll be taking that through Parks and Rec Board and then to council for final determination where that will be located?
Yes, that'll be back once we determine that location.
I'm just really excited about that item, especially because I know we talked about that when then community member Kim Smith and I served on the pool committee starting in 2000. And I know we talked about the splash pad then. So I think that'd be a really great addition to our community. Thank you. 2 last things. So item 50, the police department storage. I had a good talk with Chief Ashbeck. I think we all know that this one did not come through traditionally as typical things typically do to Jared, I think by what, June or July or August or whatever to hit capital improvements. Couple concerns I have is I don't have a picture of it. I've seen a parcel and a picture and where the land is. I haven't seen a picture of it. I mean, I know how big it is. I don't know, is the plan to go ahead and do a inspection of it? I don't know what year the building is. I don't know if we're going to get a inspection of it or an appraisal. There's just some unknowns about it that I just have concerns about. And I am not looking to pull this off the agenda or anything, but I'm just wondering whether or not, as from a legal point of view, can I maybe make an amendment to the motion to approve this? I don't know how I can get some satisfaction as far as where we are with this, because it just seems like this is a big ticket item that we're talking about, and there just doesn't seem to be, we don't have a whole lot of information.
So somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would be allocating money to purchase police department storage. We will actually, if we're going to purchase police department storage and we have an offer to purchase and all of that fund, that should come back through the appropriate city committee and council.
So I was not aware of that. So it is.
I don't know that we have anything concrete at this time.
Well, my plan was to work with you on next steps of drafting
Okay,
offer to purchase or whatever in the legal realm with
yeah,
whatever steps you would need.
okay. We would have to bring that back forward. In order to actually purchase property, we would need to get authorization.
Okay, before you actually offered.
Yes.
Oh, then I'm good. Thank you. And lastly, number 76, the city signage, both A, outdoor signage, and B, replace the city hall sign. I'm really happy that I could not be more pleased that Board of Public Works went ahead and kept that in. I think especially since the city went forward to do all the rebranding and everything, just, and the community center, I think that'll just really put the finishing touches on that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor.
Aldernaut.
Yeah, just brief comment. Diane brought up some really important information that I think that we're going to have to keep in our historical mind as we move forward. And that's that we have some very large public safety items that are going to be coming for, well, obviously one is here right now, and we have some more coming in just a few years. And that we're really going to have to largely rely on equipment replacement fund and excess revenues in order to offset some of the costs of these, or we're just not going to be able to afford it. And so we're going to have to protect those resources, including the excess revenues in the future as much as possible. Or we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult situation when it comes to buying fire trucks and other essential public safety equipment. Just my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions or whatever for the capital improvement budget? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The 2025 capital improvement budget is approved. Congratulations, everyone. Item 13, city administrator report.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. You have the report in front of you. I'll just briefly touch on the items that are there. Construction on the community center continues. As you see in there, some information came out this week that there will be a detour around that area coming up next week. Portions of Quincy Street will be closed and there will be a detour due to the construction. So notifications being made to the people in the area, and I'm sure we'll get out some press releases and social media posts as well. You all should have received emails recently from regarding some added security features that are being implemented. And so if you have any questions about that, certainly follow the directions. It's pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to our IT director on that. Students from Eagle Bluff will be coming to City Hall for a tour of the building on January 6th. They will be going around to the different suites and interacting with the staff there. Something that they do on a regular basis. So that's another kind of fun activity. The new City Hall signage, I believe you've been notified of that as well too, will be installed on December 19th and 20th. I think as you've known from previous updates, there was a little bump in the road with the company that was doing the work for us with some staffing issues that has been resolved. And so that is going to be happening now as well. I mentioned this briefly earlier, and again, this is not anything to sound an alarm by any means, but I just want you all to be aware of the Act 10 litigation that is going on. Again, I kind of put a little information in there regarding just real basic information. Bottom line is nothing needs to be done at this point in time. There isn't anything that's being changed at this moment. Once a written decision comes out, we're fully expecting appeal processes to play itself out. So there's a lot more to come on that. I participated in a League of Wisconsin Municipalities virtual town hall about that today. And again, a lot of it was questions being asked, but there weren't really a lot of answers. But the bottom line was nothing needs to be done at this point in time. We just need to keep an eye on it. Interestingly enough, one of the comments that was made is that the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that is coming up this spring certainly could have an impact on how this all plays out as well too. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. And then there's the events from the past month. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 14 is closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1985 1G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically potential enforcement action regarding Camping World Coachman flag. And also to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1985 1C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically the annual review of the city administrator. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda. We have a motion.
That we go to closed session.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dan Stevens. I have a second by Alder Stephen Knott. Answer when your name is called.
Oh, I have a question.
We're going into closed session. There's no discussion. We're answering when your name is called.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Sean McAllister,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Mike Milky.
Aye.
We are in closed session. The time is 8:09.